Yeah, we up and running. All right, family. Greetings in the name of His and Her Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie the First, Empress Wazir Menin, one perfect balance family. Yes, I give thanks, I give thanks, I give thanks. And welcome to another episode of Politically Incorrect, where we get it correct. Monday Night Madness. Yeah, I hope everybody had a full joy, a wonderful and full joy today. All the different activities. Some people was out running around, jumping up since Friday night, Saturday morning. I trust that everybody's safe and sound, and everybody now log on to Politically Incorrect. You know where we get it correct. Let me just hit this light switch real quick. Yeah. Okay. Well, y'all already know we talked about this since last week, so we ain't even gonna play. We gonna hit the ground running. I can tell you right now, go and tell a friend to tell a friend. Just go do it. Just go do it. Let me turn on some lights here. Oh man. Let me see how I'm gonna do this. Today was crazy. I spent the entire day yesterday on the farm. I spent today again on the farm, just putting in some work, man. And yeah, it's been my first love. The land. I see you, Lana. Alex, we're getting on peace more. Gotta holler at you, man. Tell them I see you too. Jackie, greetings to the family. Monica, I see you. Sonia, Jack Q Lynn, without question. And the fairy, Airy Fairy, you know who you be. Yeah, but tell a friend to tell a friend, man. I mean, you saw the amount of people that was on the road today. I could not believe it. Today was a real eye opener for me though, because for some reason I was just passing through. Fate is such a funny thing. I got a call this morning about a situation that happened last night regarding a young lady and her family and some suicide attempt and how a mutual friend intervened. I got a shout out to the family, the Fade family, because they be on their job, man. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Black Lion Security as well. And in the nick of time, you know that. Don't do it. The boy, fate is a funny thing. You can't make this stuff up at all. This is just talk being in the right place at the right time, right? Wow. But anyhow, we give thanks to the Almighty. We give thanks and praise to those who came before that be guiding our footsteps. Yeah, that be guiding our footsteps. We give thanks. We give thanks. We give thanks. Regina, we see you. So go tell a friend and tell a friend we up and running, man. The question is love an uncomfortable conversation? Now, I had to try to play with this because I was trying. Actually, what I wanted to call tonight was, why do men cheat and women get even? That was going to be the question. But I kind of changed the energy because why do men cheat and women get even is a bit suggestive because reality is not all men, quote unquote, cheat. And not all women just get revenge. Because I was telling someone, women don't cheat, they get even. But that started a whole different conversation, but it was going really good. Just a little dialogue we had back and forth. Dan, I see you. Maximum salute to you and the family, considering all that happened in the last 24, 48 hours. We give thanks. But we're going to reason when they come off. But before I go in this, let me go and drop a tune real quick. Y'all can imagine I had to search for a tune to play tonight. It was like, Chad, there's so many things I could drop. But I want to admit something. We're going to do this in two parts, though. I can't do this in one. But I might be a bit biased tonight. So, yeah, it probably going to be a bit biased tonight, though. So, I going to drop a tune, man. I going to drop a tune here, man. And I trust that this tune right here work out. I don't, upset nobody, man. But definitely go and tell a friend and tell a friend. Tell a friend and tell a friend, man. Tell a friend and tell a friend. Politically incorrect. We in the building, man. Go tell a friend and tell a friend. Oh, baby. Talk about love. Talk about trust. And trust. Talk about forever, baby. Forever, baby. Talk about us. I give you my word. Woo. Stick to my gun. Tell a friend, tell a friend. When I see it, baby, it's just begun. Politically incorrect, we in the building. You don't understand, oh girl, the full intent of my plan. Understand the plan. Overstand the plan. Jeez, on Brady Man said he wanted to be the sole provider. Sole provider. That, listen, I don't know if women understand how men think, man, but we're going to have a conversation tonight, family. And I'm opening up the lines, man. We open up the lines tonight for sure. Baby. Oh, baby. Are you ready for love, man, is the question. Talk about love. Talk about trust. Talk about forever, baby. Talk about us. I give you my word. Stick to my guns. Greetings to everyone. And I see it, baby. Those who know coming in. Speak up. You don't understand. Shalom, shalom, Phil. Oh, girl. The full intent of my plan. Baby, have the counselor call in, Phil. Have the certified counselor call in, Phil. Tell a friend and tell a friend, man. And baby, we see you. I see you too, Queen. For the longest time, baby, I wanna be your sole provider. You're so real. I know you've been hurt. I know you're love shy. You don't have to say it, baby. It's gonna take some time. It's gonna take a minute. You got my heart in the palm of your hands. I swear it's gonna stay there, baby. Give me half a chance. You don't understand. No. The full extent of my plan. Karaoke. Baby. Karaoke. I wanna be your sole provider. Wanna be your sole provider, family. Baby. Wanna provide it all, family. I wanna stay. Let me get this thing together, sis. For the longest time, baby, yes, wanna be your sole provider. Wanna be. Oh, baby, I've been waiting for a long time for somebody like you to give my love, all my love, day and night. Just say you'd be mine for the rest of your life. Rastafari. And I'll show you why, baby. Soul connection, soul connection, soul connection. Your soul provider. Yes. And baby, I wanna stay. Wanna stay, family. That's right. For the longest. Man, see, you want to be the sole provider, man. Sole provider. How you gonna beat that, family? Provide it all, man. There's some powerful tunes. You want karaoke night on Politically Incorrect? That'd be interesting, right? Have folks call in and do a little karaoke. Y'all take this thing to another level, man. Like the idea, though, Isis, for sure. For sure. We can do that this Saturday Night Live, man. We talk about having a movie night and all, creating that network where there's content, log on, show a film, talk about it. These are things that we definitely can do. We talked about it. It's a matter of getting it happening. So, yeah, we need to have that dialogue at some point. Actually, we could link that with some other groups that we in and bring the family together as one. But yeah, family, it's love and uncomfortable conversation. The reason why, like I said, I was want to originally have this thing where why do men cheat and women get even? But I didn't want to be biased and navigate it in the particular direction because the truth is that's not the only thing we want to focus on here tonight. So let me go ahead first and put this link up from the early for those who are interested in coming on in and sharing your comments. You can do a voiceover. You can do a video. The choice is yours. If you're going to do a video, just make sure that you're facing the light so that we can see you clearly and we don't have no silhouette where you look like the shadow. You know what I mean? So yeah. Anyhow, the link has been posted. So it's like, where do we begin? Like, I want to start right off the top with this complete controversy. There's a sister right now that I've been watching her for a minute, been listening to her off and on. She goes back, one of the old veterans too. She ain't nobody new. Sister Shahrazad Ali. Some of y'all may know her, some of y'all may not know her, but I guarantee by the end of tonight, y'all going to definitely know this sister. Now, the interview is actually a lot longer than I'm willing to play on here. But what I will also do is I'll post the link in the comments so you can check it out. And I would have shared this before in other platforms, like in other WhatsApp groups and stuff, and had dialogue. But I only posted like 1 or 2 clips from this entire interview. Of course, the clips I played might have been a bit biased as well, but for good reasons to start that conversation. But I'm going to play about 3-4 minutes here initially. And where I'm starting with this is because the truth is, we live in a society that they say it's a man's world. It's a man's world. No, man. Almost everything is catered towards women in more ways than one. Not that that's a good or bad thing. What it does, however, it kind of casts a shadow on the other side. No, someone said to me recently that women should always be given preference over others. And I was thinking about it. I was saying to myself, well, why was that said? Why would someone say that? Like, women should be given preference. What entitles a woman to receive preference? And so that conversation sparked another conversation, because my thing was, well, wait a minute, the woman is the mother of creation, especially the Black woman, or who we identify as the Black woman. So yeah, though, like, she deserves that. Then you look at society and you think, well, she deserved that. So the question became, well, I asked the question next, does she get that recognition? Sally, almost everyone said no. So I was wondering, well, how come? Well, how come? If she deserves more, why is she getting less? So we're going to look at this from 2 different angles. But love, we use this word loosely, love, and it's connected to a lot of other things. We could say family, but then again, we love family, but we love different people in the family differently. The love for your husband versus the love for your sibling versus the love for your children. Or, so they may be different aspects of it. So it's broad, but we're going to narrow it down to the male-female relationship type of love. We're going to start with that. But this is about family. But let's start with that. So let me just jump right into this sister right here real quick. I'm going to post her video as well. Like I said, if you want to come in and do a voice, you could do a voice, share your comments. Otherwise, you can just do the video. Choice is yours. But let me go start with this. This is probably going to be a bit controversial, but we'll see how it goes. Anyhow, family, buckle up. This flight about to take off, man. Good night to you, Sammy. I see you, Joel. Art in motion. All right, so here we go, family. This is what's happening here right now. Pay attention.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of Vibrations. I'm Raven Geary. Today on our program, one of the hottest properties making the talk show circuit, Shahrazad Ali. An established writer indeed, Ms. Ali is best known as the author of The Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman, a very controversial and, if I may say so, a very critical view of life of today's Black woman. She joins us today in our studio, and of course, we'd like to welcome you today to Vibrations.
Well, thank you, Raven, for inviting me.
Basically, it's your premise that the Black woman is out of sync with the natural order of things. Can you explain that?
Well, it's a very sensitive subject, and certainly I believe that I have tried to approach it from a very sensitive angle. What I have actually said is that the Black woman's disrespect and rebellion against the leadership and the authority of the Black man is a direct cause of the breakdown in the Black family structure. It's not an attack on us as Black women. It's just saying that in the breakdown of any relationship, both parties have to take responsibility. And as Black women, we have been protected and insulated from any kind of examination about what our share of the responsibility is in the breakdown of the Black family. My book represents the first platform, certainly, that the Black man has ever had to air his grievances about the Black woman, because no one would ever listen to him. They have only listened to us.
Can you tell us a little bit about the book itself? What brought you to this point of having to sit down and use your pen to write this book?
Well, actually, it was my first book. In 1985, I authored How Not to Eat Pork or Life Without the Pig.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I was going around doing what I was calling Get Off That Hog lectures. And during my travels, I noted that I would take the microscope and show people how you can't kill the trichina worm in pork by cooking it. Heat was not destroying the worm, and I would show them, the difference, and demonstrate how FDA was now using radiation to try to kill the worms in pork because cooking was not working, which is what we had always been told. And during that time, a lot of Black men were in agreement to get off eating pork. They wanted to change their eating habits, and they were happy to find out some information that might possibly save their lives. But it was Black women who were the most adamant, who refused to change meal planning techniques, seasoning food, cooking techniques. And so I said, that's interesting. I said, if we are refusing to provide the Black man with the proper physical food, when we know that food is what sustains life, then what else are we withholding from him? Possibly there's some other areas, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, that we are affecting his behavior by what we do or what we withhold and refuse to give. And that led me to try to find out. We've always heard that the Black man leaves the Black family, abandons his woman and children, won't take care of the children, won't work, stays out all night, turns into a drunk, takes drugs. We've heard a lot of negative things. Most of them are true. But I wanted to find out what happens before he gets to that point. What leads up to the breakdown? We've never gone back to try to find out what happens in the relationship between the Black man and a Black woman that makes him go off and do all of these bad things. To assume that this is just normal, natural behavior for Black men would be to assume that he is naturally bad. And I do not believe that the man that God gave to us as a mate is a naturally bad person. And so I wanted to try to examine what goes on with him. What's his side of the story?
Did a Black man ask you to write this book?
Oh, no, certainly not. I think they were just as surprised as Black women. Many of them approached the title of the book with a little apprehension because they have not had a champion. We have never had a Black woman who actually stood up and said, I'm standing up for the Black man's side of the story. We know what our side is, and both sides are true. We have done some very dreadful things to each other. And I don't exonerate Black men, which is kind of a misconception that people have. I just say that we know his side. What about our side? And we do have a side. We have adopted some wrong standards. We are judging our men many times by the wrong value system. We are using his children sometimes against him. We have been told that the only benefit that a Black man provides in a home is money. And if he does not give us money to take care of those kinds of financial provisions, that he has no value. And what my research has proven to me is that a Black man, any man in any home provides much more than financial support. The man provides guidance, instruction, discipline for the children, which we sorely need in our Black homes. He provides gratification, fulfillment, protection. There's so many other values. And these values are the ones that are missing in our children today, which is why many Black children are in the street, out of control themselves, disrespectful, don't have any regard for anyone. And most of us are scared of them, and everybody else is, because nobody has a way into them to try to gain any control over them. So I maintain that a return to traditional family values, certain clearly defined gender responsibilities for Black men and Black women in running a home and a relationship will help us to produce a better child. And if we produce a better child, certainly we'll have a better future and a better nation.
And saying all of this, and as calling yourself a champion and having, if I may say, the courage to write this book and stand by it, you've caused a stir. This book is very controversial. What are you hearing from public reaction?
Well, I don't think that it's an issue among Black women about whether or not the book is true or not. The issue is that I was not supposed to tell. These are inside secrets and things that we have never let our men know about. And many times we say? He can't handle me.
He can't handle me. I'm going to pause it right there for now, since she said she's letting out the secrets. And like I said, this is quite interesting. Let me go ahead and post this in the chat as well. Put that up right there real quick for y'all to just copy that. Go check it out, the full thing. I'm going to play one or two other parts of this as we go on. But, okay, so we heard a lot just now, but I'm gonna go back to what she said initially. That the black woman is out of sync. What do you mean by out of sync? Out of sync. Out of sync how? Out of sync in terms of who she is, out of sync in terms of her identity, out of sync in terms of the balance and natural order of life. And if so, how did it get that way? Because when it comes to relationships, man, people, I mean, I've heard all kind of drama going on. I've seen all kind of stuff. And it's like there's a direct breakdown. We're not even comparing other groups of individuals, whether Indian, Caucasian, whatever. In the black community, there is clearly one dominant thing that you see a lot of. And yes, the Trojan are the ones mostly out of hand as well. Not that other cultures don't have this as well. And believe you me, circumstances has a lot to do with it in terms of economic circumstances, educational circumstances, the spiritual aspect of things, where people are. And so it is not as simple as saying, well, yeah, you know, the woman this and the woman that. But when it comes to relationships and how we interact, a lot of how we deal with each other is a result and a direct result of the trauma we would have experienced on a plantation. Now, that's some conversation that it get real touchy. I mean, this goes even as far as the relationships where you would have had your wife, you know, y'all been together, trying to enjoy the struggle of the enslavement. And then one day out the blue, this guy comes up to your house and snatch your wife or your daughter, wife and your daughter from you and have their way with them. And you expected to sit there and just watch this in some cases, or worse yet, wait outside, boy. And therefore, you know, the thing called the pickety plantation, where they would come and just pick whoever they choose. This is usually after Sunday service, by the way, you know, usually after Sunday service and Sunday lunch, but that's a different conversation. But then here's the deal though. As a man now, you're expected to come in afterwards and then console your wife and your daughter, like, yeah, baby, you know, how do you psychologically deal with that? You can't. But here's where it gets worse. Week after week, this activity goes on. Then one week, he decides to come by and drop off a piece of ham. Now, whereas before, she was resisting and fighting and clothes being ripped off, a few weeks into it, you know, you expected to step outside, boy, and it's like they're in the house laughing and giggling. I brought you some pork and you cooked for the family. Now, as a man, now you gotta be thinking, like, wait a minute, you know, this. So after this invader leaves, you gotta face your family again and your children, and it's like, you know, wait, what one in here laughing at? Were you in here giggling at? What's the mindset? Understand the mindset is like, well, you know, he brings some ham, he brings some food to feed the family. That chicken you had last week, was he who gave me that? So you see how the divide and rule works. It's like, well, he provide for her and the children, and you out there slaving and cutting grass, whatever it is, or whatever it is. And you see how they start to emasculate you in your own home, where you ain't get no respect no more. Despite you trying to hover all along, is like, so the average man, that situation, what are you going to do? Go down to the corner shop with the rest of men who've been through it already. They're drinking and look to numb the pain, numb the trauma by drowning it with spirits. Well, so white plantation man is now the provider. Okay, so now let me fast forward a bit. So you see the science in that. The trauma from taking that role as the man in the house, and being the man in the house don't mean you controlling a woman. It doesn't mean you control anything. It means that you recognize the quality you both share, and she recognizes your strengths, and therefore she submits to that. Not that she's subject to you, the man, but she recognizes your strength and knows how to give to that. Because she takes what you give, and like the video once said, she multiplies it, which is a fact. Women are amazing when they're balanced and when they're in their right space. They do what I would say magic, but some folks do not like that word because it might carry a negative connotation. But they do miracles, man. They do miracles with next to nothing. And a sister who knows herself could do even greater miracles. You could, a sister that knows herself, who vibrating at that queen status, using that word loosely, recognizes the king and the man, and despite him not even seeing his own value, will cause a man who running the streets wearing hoodies and fatigues and packing with guns or whatever else they're doing, will cause this young man to look at himself and be like, yo, let me relook myself, because here's this woman of great status. And I don't mean status that she thinks she's big and better than anybody else. I'm saying she clearly knows her worth. She clearly has worth. She carries herself in a certain way. And she's taking the time to look at me. And yeah, this is a true story though. I had to go look in the mirror, man. Like, yo, shorty checking me out. Like, God damn. I gotta clean up, man. Despite the fact that she didn't want to change me, because she never said I had to. She explained to me certain things. And what was interesting is that, she said, well, I see more in you. But at the time, I was wearing hoodies and camouflage and, Tim boots. And I up in Brooklyn doing my thing. I on that thuggy on that street. But sister was like, nah, though, like you could do, I guess she wanted to upgrade me. Well, I'm glad, though. I started dressing a little different, you know what I mean? Started, put a little collar on and take off the hoodie, take off the camouflage and that thuggy look, man. And just, of course, I ain't had no hair then. Well, I had less hair. But the point is that a woman, can cause a man to relook himself and inspire a man to want to be better and better every single day. It's really that simple. But I got some questions here. I don't want to miss them. Let me see. Bertram, I give thanks for brother. I got a question. This question: do you think some people mix up the word rule with control? It's a good question. Oh man, I think that's a good question. What do y'all think? Give me your thoughts. The brother asked a question about rule and control. The difference between rule and control is that control is about you seizing authority. You see, you taking it in some cases by force, whereas ruling means that somebody is submitting to you. So it's not by force, it's by appointment. You rule by appointment. And if you're being appointed, that means that somebody or some people have appointed you to rule. In which case, it means that they have an expectation of you, which you, if you are the ruler, have to live up to. It doesn't mean you better than, it doesn't mean you stronger than. It means that they have decided that you get to rule because they see that quality in you, and their position is to help guide you in that rulership. Control now could be even strong arm. Control is a whole different conversation for sure. And sister had another question here. She said, I see women walk barefoot, cook, give the man chicken while she eat the bone, and later he leaves her. Well, this is an interesting thing here. I've seen that as well. I've also seen the opposite. A brother give her his all, and she still turn around and leave. So the question whether a person stays or leave may not be based on a woman giving her all or a man giving his all, but more so based on what that person wants out of life. So when you meet someone and y'all interacting or what they call courting or dating or whatever term they use, jostling or whatever modern term they use, whatever binary term they use, that's me throwing it out there for fun. The reality is that having that conversation, because typically, you see somebody you like the person for different reasons, and folks having this dialogue. The reality is this: in some relationships, based on how they start, there's no dialogue for the sake of understanding or getting to know the person. There's dialogue and trying to figure out how I'm gonna get at this person. Usually it's for a sexual hookup, and that's another conversation by itself, in which case that should be known up front so that you ain't gotta be looking for more from the particular brother or the sister. They just trying to, what they call it now? Hook up or whatever term they use. So then rather than having an expectancy or expecting the brother or the sister to be a certain way, the reality, the fact is the dialogue makes it clear. And yes, the dialogue isn't always clear from the beginning, as always clear from the door. But that dialogue is what's necessary to avoid having to give the man your all and go eat the bone and the man's still leaving. Now, it's a case where there's a relationship going on and people are having this one-on-one back and forth. And, it's a case where it doesn't work despite her giving her all. And the question would be, why it didn't work? Why didn't it work? And it not working or him leaving or her leaving didn't happen overnight. I'm sure there are things that led up to that caused that to be the case. That caused that to happen. Let me see. These are the disrespect on both sides. The question is, how did Black women, which wants respect to the role of the man, see the Black man as being irrelevant in the lives or in the household? How did this disconnect come about? When one looks at all generation of Black family, one sees marriage lasting for many years. I like that, sis. And I want to touch on that as well. I was going to do it a little later when I was going to bring up another question when it comes to children in a relationship. But where did this disrespect come from? Plantation. And that's not to blame a situation. What I'm trying to say is that there's a psychological trauma that has been passed on from generation to generation. Now, the question Sister answers, why do all the families that had that same generational issue versus what we see today? Let me tell you why. One of the reasons, right, is because objective, purpose. What was the purpose for the relationships back then? Why did we have relationships? What was the cause of it? You see, if you want to say A, you got to say B. Most of these older relationships, these families that lasted for years, these marriages, you look at them, some of them had a lot of children. They had a lot of children. They understood the idea of nation building and worked towards that on different levels. Some singularly, some through having multiple wives. Well, may not necessarily been a wife in terms of how we see a wife, but they may have had the term, what they call it, what? The village ram. They call that term, and they make it a very derogatory term. Oh, he's a village ram. But you say A, you got to say B again, because most of the elders I knew from that era that lived, quote unquote, that lifestyle, that folks would classify them as, quote unquote, the village ram. The truth is they provided for every single one of their households. Everyone. Because it was a different order then in terms of how people understood life going forward. So they understood that they needed to be together and produce children for generations to come so that they would have an opportunity to rebuild and restore that which was disrupted. So despite that would have occurred, any chance they got, not necessarily all, but they was into building, restoring the nation on a different level. Now, what we have today is a bit different. This idea about, you don't need a man, you could do it independent, all this other stuff goes back to the idea, well, I don't need you because I'm being provided. My needs are being provided for by the system. Demand. The system is called demand, which is funny. I'm being provided and taken care of by the system. So no, I don't need you. But then again, they say they don't need you at all. They got toys now. So they say they don't need the man at all. Some females move like queens -2. The feminist movement brainwashed women into thinking that submission was control and that submission meant you couldn't pursue your personal goals. The feminist movement. Oh man, this is a rough one here. Sonny, you should call in and speak on this yourself. The feminist movement did deceive Black women. It is a fact. Black women never had issues with Black men in terms of what white women were claiming were the issues. They weren't having that at all. But some bought into it. Some still buy into it. And I've had this conversation as well with some people who say they are feminists. I always ask them, what does that mean? I mean, what does that mean? But these are all different labels that the system, again, put in place to help break down the family unit, especially the Black family, because our power and our strength was always guaranteed once we had the family intact. Once we had the family intact, it was almost guaranteed that things would prevail in our favor because we were building that strength. Family. You see? So you break the family down, you break the people down, you can steal the children. Look what's going on today. A lot of the youths out of control. And not just from those who you call in the lower ends of society, it's from all over. And yes, a lot of youths doing good things as well. As a matter of fact, there's a young lady, they wanted to play that. I'll probably play it before the night is over. Who Barbados' first gymnast at the Carry Fest Games, I think what it is. Though, I definitely got to shout out youths doing positive stuff as well, because we don't always get to give them that kind of recognition. But family is what caused things to happen exponentially for us as a people coming together. That's why it's about healing and this thing called love. This thing called love. Are we really ready for it? Because in order to do so, we got to heal both male and female. We can't keep pointing fingers. Well, men do this and women do this. Let's start analyzing how we got in this situation in the first place, so we can start realizing what we need to do. Now, everything ain't gonna work for everybody. We understand that. Some folks will be okay with this, okay with some stuff. Some folks won't be okay with other stuff. We get that. But family is the most important institution in building any nation. Family. And that's what we got to focus on. I think that balance must be restored. Men and women in the right order will bring success to the marriage. You see that? I totally agree, Naeem. I totally agree. And that's what's important. That balance is indeed important. I can't stress that enough at all. Now, let me check with Phil. I want to play this other piece real quick, and I was told that we have a special guest supposed to be coming in shortly. I trust that he will do so. So true. People should stay up front so you can make an informed decision. The trauma gets passed down. Now, imagine, and the truth is, a lot of young men grow up in single parent homes, mostly raised by their mothers. In most cases. And yes, some mothers have the right equipment, the right knowledge on how to go about doing that. And some now may have, not so well of knowledge, so that it becomes a bit of an issue. And so how do we now raise a man child with a woman who has emotional issues about the father and other kind of drama? He might have been abusive as well to add to it. The situation is complete disaster and toxic. How do we reconcile that? And the child is watching. Now the child gets old as a young man, goes to look for a wife, and repeats what he saw growing up. How do you unravel that? I see someone logged in here. You're logged in to share a thought, a comment. I see you. I know who you are as well. Let me see. Gemma, how are you? Okay, my attitude. Greetings. How are you?
Greetings. I'm doing well, thank you.
You're live. Go ahead and share your thoughts.
I really didn't want to share my thoughts. It's just the link that I used. I just came in, so I need to listen in a bit more before I can make a comment.
Okay. We're talking about love. Is love an uncomfortable conversation in terms of the family structure and healing?
I'd say it is uncomfortable in our situation, since we have been so traumatized by so many events in our lives, namely the DNA of slavery that has been imprinted in us.
True.
So yes, I'd say it is uncomfortable, and that's unfortunate. So it's time for us to heal. It's time for us to make amends to that.
Well, let me ask you a question since I have you here really quick before you go off. Have you ever been in a relationship?
As to how you go about that, I'm probably not the best person to address that, because I have my own severe traumas in terms of that not having a father, and not having a father now has complicated my interactions with males. So I am in need.
Wow. Well, I was going to ask you a question. I was actually going to ask you a question about relationships. If you've been in a relationship before that didn't work out, if you can recognize what was your role and why it didn't work out. Because we always tend to think it's the other person's fault. We always do that. You know, have you ever looked?
Yeah, I think my role in the subsequent demise of that relationship is the fact that I basically don't know how to love, and I don't share that deep side of me. I hold back.
Wow.
And you hold back out of fear because you don't want to be rejected. Because you always think you are eventually going to be rejected. So you know what? Before I have to face that, let me just keep myself to myself. Let me not share.
Wow.
Let me not give 100%.
I want to thank.
And that's all about protection. You know, you're protecting yourself.
No, I want to thank you for sharing that, because that's so profound. You said, you know, about not knowing how to love. I mean, and you connect to that with not having your father in your life. And obviously then, I've said this before. People say children are usually attached closer to their fathers, and boys tend to be attached closer to their mothers. I don't know if that's true or not, but I could see how it's important for a man to be in the life of his children, both his children. And I won't say especially the girls, but I say both the children, because he gets to teach his sons and gets to teach his daughters how to treat and how to be treated. So it's equally, the balance is equally important. And that goes into, like I said, another part of this conversation I'll do a bit later on, in terms of mothers withholding the children from their fathers and stuff, in terms of this love thing. But I want to thank you for sharing your thoughts on the spur of the moment. Sorry for putting you on the spot, sis.
That's perfect. That's perfectly okay. Listen, we're supposed to be here to help each other.
Nice.
And we recognize that we have been traumatized, and we recognize that we need healing. So, you know, you have to face it head on. Otherwise, we'll keep going through this all the time. It doesn't make any sense hiding from it. And I'd like to comment on mothers withholding children from their fathers. That is just selfish.
Well, stick around. Well, stick around. We gonna get into that, because I know that's going to be a bit of a, I don't even know what to call it, but definitely stick around for that. Don't go nowhere. Stick around for that. That's cool.
Cool.
I give thanks. I want to thank the sister for coming on live. I realize our special guest is here as well, and I'm going to bring him in a second. But before we get to that, recognize, family, that we are going to discuss in a few, maybe another 15 minutes or so, because I got a question I want to answer. It's a very profound question, and I'm guilty of it too. Let me just put it out there in the early, and we gonna touch it. We gonna touch it, but we're gonna come back on in a second. We're gonna hear from our counselor. Yes, greetings, Mr. Lane. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. Shalom. Good to see you, man.
Shalom to you too. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Well, first of all, welcome to Politically Incorrect, the platform. This is an honor to have you share your time and wisdom with us, and therefore, I got my pen and my paper here ready to learn from you tonight. So go ahead and introduce yourself to our viewing audience.
All right. Well, I'm Al Lane. I'm a family therapist. I'm a psychotherapist. I was having this discussion earlier today. When people call me counselor and then they come in my office and I order a blood test again, I get a bit upset.
A little nerve-wracking. I can imagine.
Well, that's what I do. So I see people who have family issues. I also see people with psychological issues and so on. I've had some unique experiences with adoption and substance abuse and a number of different things. Trying to sew back marriages that are fine. And I know that sounds odd, but I have people coming to me all the time. The marriage is fine, but their perception of the marriage is terrible.
Wow.
And a lot of the time, it really has to do with expectations. We have people that come into marriage with the expectation that other people are going to make them happy, and so they're not happy, and therefore there's something wrong with the marriage.
Yeah, I've heard that before. I actually know a situation where someone had gotten married, and they really felt at that point, okay, good, finally someone is going to take care of me. And I was like, take care, you better take care of yourself. And that simple statement changed the dynamics of their marriage. Definitely. I mean, it never was the same after that. And that was honeymoon night. You know what I'm saying? So you were right about that expectation. You know, people get married for different reasons. And like I said, that communication, that dialogue at first to make sure that we have the clear-cut objective. Because marriage is a business, you know. It's really a business. And it should be approached as such.
It is.
It must have a clear-cut objective other than the oh, I love you and you love me and the rose is red and the violet's blue. Nothing like you and me or me and you, you know, that kind of stuff. It has to be approached from an intellectual standpoint, not just an emotional standpoint, in order to make sure that you will have a success at it. So let me ask you a question, Mr. Well, I don't want to call you coach, so I call you the therapist.
Just call me Al.
Al can work. And this is because since you do it with marriages mostly, well, this question is not exclusive to marriages, but I'm gonna use marriage because that's the sacred institution that we are taught is God's institution. Yeah. Why do men cheat and women get even? I'm sure you heard all kinds of stories.
Okay, so all right, so you're not gonna ease this on, right? Okay.
No. Okay.
Well, let me just say one thing before I try to address that question. I'm not sure why you invited me here because I was listening to you for like last 15 minutes, and you basically answering all the questions and doing a really great job. So
no, but so you have the experience with actual people more so, and I think that, like you said, there are marriages who are fine.
Yeah.
So they create problems that don't even exist.
And that's true. So your question is why do men cheat and women get even? You know, one of the challenges that people experience with marriage is that not just marriage, but the relationships generally, is that we are now learning relationships from television. So we're learning relationships from sitcoms. But these people are being paid to act, and then they go home to miserable lives, right? So if you're learning relationships on television, then it's not a surprise that when the relationships go bad, you don't have the tools to manage them.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So let me just give you a couple of examples. So when I talk about marriages that are in great shape, but people are on the verge of divorce, and I see it, you know, I have couples that come into me occasionally, you know, fortunately, well, from time to time I will get them before they go to court, but sometimes they come either by court referral or, you know, there's something to do with the child and they come in. And after about 4 weeks or so of seeing me, I'm beginning to notice that the husband usually is looking at the wife very amorously. All right? Because just a few things were cleared up in terms of what the expectations should be in relationships, the way you communicate and so on. And the relationship really starts to go very well. So here's a typical conversation for me. So marriage, like you said, is a business, is about trading resources, right? Fundamentally, that's what it is. How do we know that's the case? Well, the day that you can't bring home money to buy groceries or pay the rent,
okay,
right? The marriage breaks up. the day that for some reason or the other there's an issue with intimacy, the marriage starts to have challenges. So it's really about trading resources. And women have different resources to trade, and men have different resources to trade. When we recognize that and we trade the requisite resources, the relationships go well. What often happens, though, is that emotions begin to get into it.
That E
So-
word.
Exactly. So we go from a business arrangement that's going perfectly okay
Mhm.
to the fact that, I don't feel loved. And I have to say this to men all the time. It is not your responsibility to make her happy. And I say to the wife, it is not your responsibility to make him happy. If a miserable person comes into a relationship, the relationship is going to be toxic. So regardless. So you have got some personal work that you have to do. You have to come into the relationship joyful, happy, complete. If you're not coming into the relationship joyful, happy, and complete, and you bring the emotions into the relationship, then the relationship is going to become very difficult. So in other words, there's nothing wrong with the relationship or with the marriage. The issue is that, like you said earlier, there usually is some kind of trauma. And trauma is very, very difficult to explain in terms of how it manifests, right? So somebody sleeping on the wrong side of the bed, somebody squeezing toothpaste a different way, somebody dropping clothes on. These are just very simple things that you can resolve. But those little things create emotional stress in relationships. People get angry.
Simple as it is.
Yeah, and if it keeps building up and is not vetted or vented, then you have people who have a very good marriage, business arrangement, but emotionally they are just very angry and bitter with each other.
Wow. I find that you said two things that I definitely want to touch on, and I want to kind of bring back, and let's focus in a little more on them. And that is the emotional part and the TV advice for relationships. Because when the question asks, men always cheat and men this. I mean, I hear that everywhere. But like you said, when we like growing up, let me use me for example. There was a show called Dallas. There was a show called Falcon Crest. There was another show called was it the Bold and Beautiful? That was the Bold and Beautiful. That was the Bold. Well, they had the Days of Our Life too, but that was nothing in comparison to the Bold and Beautiful Dynasty and Falcon Crest. That was a whole different level. And you find that I remember seeing girls read these books called Mills and Blooms. These kind of things. I met this guy on the Orient. He took me on his yacht and we were sailing across the Mediterranean and this kind of stuff. So my thing is, when it came to relationships, well, I got a lot of my advice for relationships watching BET. Got it off the blocks, got it from, situations that weren't ideally with the interests of a Black family or a family period. So when you talk about TV, getting ideas from television, the romance ideas or the lifestyle, we've never really looked at it like that. We always talk how music does affect and influence the children. The music they're listening to, or this they're listening to. They watch all them violent movies, the cartoons. But as adults, we don't realize how we too are being influenced by these Hollywood, these theatrics of illusions, showing you these family ideas and values that really and truly, in most cases, do not support the wellness of our situation, especially in people who coming out of a trauma. Something as simple as you said, the toothpaste being rolled, you might squeeze from the bottom, she might squeeze from the top. And as much as that's simple, right? I've heard people argue about that.
Mhm.
So the sister said that you should come to the table as two wholes as opposed to half and half. And I thought that was interesting because you should know yourself. And I think that you said it's not your responsibility to make the other person happy. You're supposed to come to the table already as a bag of joy.
Mhm.
And they should come to the table as a bag of joy. And if treated as such going forward, anything that happens outside of that relationship should be something that we discuss in the relationship before it gets to the point where, quote unquote, folks are being accused of cheating and women decide to go and get even. Because we would have had a conversation to know where we both stand. So communication, to just slice it in between the bread that you put like cheese, communication is one, if not the most fundamental ingredient in having a successful business relationship that we call marriage or otherwise. Communication is key. What are some of the points you find that people ignore when it comes to communication that cause the breakdown in a relationship?
One of the things that we learn in therapy is this business about encoding and decoding, right?
What do you call it?
So,
Encoded. And what do you call it?
Encoding and decoding. All right. So I say, as a man, I say to a woman, I love you. And what I mean is I would like to have sex with you.
Right.
As a woman, what the woman hears is, I want to take care of you. Right? Because that's what a woman wants. A woman wants a man who is going to cherish and care for her. But fundamentally, what a man wants is a woman that he can have sex with. Right? At a fundamental level. People, of course, would argue, well, you know, that's terrible. That's not the case. But that's how we're biologically wired, so that the race and that human beings continue to populate the earth. Those are fundamental things, right? So there is this issue then with what I say and what you hear, and then how you respond to what you think I said.
Okay, I follow you. I follow you.
And then part of that becomes, and this is an issue. So one of the things I have to do when I'm working with husbands and wives, I normally will make a statement like this. First, you need to learn to listen, and then you need to listen to learn, right? Now, let me tell you how profoundly important that little statement is. One of the things we do when we're talking to each other is that we anticipate what the other person is going to say, right? And we also then make assumptions about what that person means by what we've anticipated. And sometimes that's not what the person says, and it is far away from what they mean. And so if the person who is hearing a statement being made is expressive or combative, and then will say something like, what do you mean by that? Then that sometimes can be explained, right? In other words, like, what do you think I mean? Well, it sounds to me like you were saying so and so and so and so.
Right,
and so
right.
The person sending a message or them would say, that's not what I mean. This is what I mean. So let's pause for a minute and just grasp this. I am now able to explain to you what I mean by what I just said. But I may not have said it in a way that your mother said it to your father, or that your mother's boyfriend said it, or what have you. And so now you don't believe what I've said,
Right.
even though I've said it, because it must mean something else.
It sounds different to what you're used to.
It sounds very different to what you're used to. When my father said that to my mother, this is what he meant. So you said that to me, similar to the conversation that we had when I came in initially, right? So this notion of encoding and decoding is very important. And so one of the other things that people do is, because you are anticipating what the other person is saying, you're really not listening to them. You're really waiting for them to shut up so you can say what you have to say.
Right.
Right. And what happens often in a case like that is that you miss what's being said, and you certainly miss all the body language and all of the context and everything else. So then the second thing I say is after you've learned to listen, which means quieting your mind and just accepting whatever the person says is what they mean, whether they do or not, right? Then you go to listen to learn.
Learn, right.
When you've gotten to the point where you listen to learn, you can hear things that are being said that are not being said. Let me give you an example, right?
Mhm.
So my wife comes home in the afternoon from work. She walks in the door. I've been home all day, working outside, cutting grass, cleaning windows, mopping the house, scrubbing, washing dishes, and what have you, which is a fantastic thing. This is something that my wife is going to be very happy about when she comes home.
Right.
So I go to the door because I've been here by myself all day long. So I want to give her a hug and a kiss. She says, "Get away from me. Just move." Right?
Hmm.
What I'm feeling and hearing is rejection.
Right.
All right? Oh, that's obvious.
Right.
Then
Right.
she goes, she takes a shower, she comes back out, smiles at me and says, "What would you like for dinner?" At which point I'm like pissed off because, walk through the door. What is she saying? What
Right.
she's saying, listen, I am tired. I've been dealing with these grumpy people all day long. My boss is a bitch. I am just so sick and tired of all the shit I have to go through every day.
Can't deal with it.
Can't deal with it. And you're the only person that she can be hostile with, get it off, and not get fired
Right.
or, So, but this is a pattern that begins to develop, and you begin to notice.
Mhm.
So when she comes home in the evening, what you do? You don't try greeting her at the door. You give her half hour, right? Comes in, takes a shower, and she comes back out. Then you can give her a hug and a kiss.
Right. Right. Now she's
Exactly. Now she's had a chance to exhale,
right.
right? So now you're hearing something different. So you're not feeling rejected. And for a man, we just need something like that to happen once or twice, right? And we feel rejected, and then we go and find another woman, right? So I think this answers the question that you asked about earlier.
Wow.
If you make me
That-
feel
but that-
rejected, I'm out.
But it goes back to the same thing, not communicating, because if you listening to her unspoken word, if you recognizing her pattern, what she's doing, if you're paying attention to your wife, your other half, then like you said, if you're paying attention, you're supposed to notice that she do all that, yet she coming at you cool and calm, you want for dinner. So she in a different vibe altogether.
Yeah.
If you're paying attention. If you're not paying attention, like you said, you all in your feelings, and you go out there and I'm making an unwise decision. So we can safely conclude that if men do cheat, it's because they be in their feelings more often than not.
Exactly.
Not their intelligence.
Except, of course, I mean, come on now, we don't want to, because that really kind of puts it on the woman. You have some men that cheat before they come into the relationship.
Period.
And the women know that they cheat before they come into the relationship. And some women, just figure that they're going to change that. I think history essentially says that that's not the case.
Hey, hold on, let me write that one down. Wait, hit a nail on the head there, boy. Some folks ain't gonna like that, but I've heard that before.
Yeah,
you got involved with the guy, he was married, and you got involved with him on the side. I mean,
exactly.
He's already shown you himself.
Mm-hmm.
If they work, you might be able to do that and change him if you that kind of female, that kind of woman, and it might not if he that kind of male, that kind of man. So this conversation has so many different angles it could take and turn. And the reason why I was just throwing it out there initially was to start, like you said, the conversation. Because at the end of the conversation, what is the objective? How do we get to healing? One sister put up this message just now about sometimes it might not even be the toothpaste. The toothpaste just triggered them to argue about what they really want to argue about. So sometimes there's other things going on in the back. Like you said, it wasn't the hug or the kiss at the door.
Mm-hmm.
My day was crazy. Other things going on. So had a man confront his wife at the door, they might have had a whole big argument right then and right there about a hug or a lack of a hug and lack of a kiss. And the reality, her energy wasn't even coming from that. Something totally different. Just use the same scenario. So communication. We say that all the time, but do we really practice it? And then is it a case where some people don't know how to communicate? Because the sister said it earlier. She said, my relationship failed because I realized that I didn't know how to love.
Mhm.
You know, I didn't know. I don't know. Some people, I don't know how to communicate. I know I've only seen my mother, my father arguing when they talk. So for me, oh, okay, got it. So I only know how to communicate by being loud and expressive and stressing on words and speaking to you like I'm the principal of the primary school, you know, while you're being flogged, you know. So communication clearly is one of the main issues we have as a people. And like you said, in terms of listening, learning to listen and then listening to learn, I like that because we do that sometimes. We're having a conversation and we kind of preempt what the person is going to say next. And we are formulating a response, which means that we are no longer listening. We didn't cut off listening, which means we're not learning. So like you said, I can't wait till you stop. And sometimes we don't even wait for the person to stop. We just jump right in and it's a back and forth again. So we both now talking at the same time, like we could sing together, but we definitely can't talk to understand together. And I find that, yes, these are some of the same things that spark even more debate and more controversy in a relationship when people fail to learn to listen and then don't listen to learn, you know. What advice would you give a couple, let me say a couple, any relationship that's having challenges, especially when it comes to communication? What advice would you give them in terms of how to, because in some cases you might need to separate, but in some cases you might need to save the relationship because like you said, it's a valid relationship. It just needs a little, like a car, just need a little tune up, just a little oil change, a little filter change, some new tires, and it good to go again. What advice would you give a couple who having problems communicating with each other?
Well, you know, my advice would be come to see me before you decide to go to court, but that's expensive. So the other advice would be find a couple where their relationship works and just have a conversation with them. You may not have had a mother and a dad who are living in the same house where you're able to observe. But, you know, you have people who've got relationships that have worked very well.
True.
At December this year, I'll be married for 40 years, right?
What, 40?
40. I'll be married for 40 years.
Wow, I like it.
But I had to be, you know. I remember about 20 years ago, a young man looked at me and said, "Wait, you're going to be a family therapist?" I said, "Yes." He says, "But you realize you can't get divorced, right?" So I said, "Why not?" He said, "Well, if you get divorced, the money can listen to you guys." So arguably, that was a good reason to.
I like it. Fair enough.
But find somebody, man, who's having a really great relationship. Find a mentor. That's what you want. You need to find a mentor. It used to be that parents were great mentors. You know, your mother would say, "Listen, he's a man," and that speaks volumes when a mother says he is a man. And it's like, what does that mean, Mom? He's a man. This is how men are. Even in terms of men having relationships outside of the home, he's a man. Not that the man is frisky or black sheep or what have you. But I think generally, women, certainly of past generations, recognize that there were points in the relationship, particularly when women get to their 40s and 50s, that there are points in the relationship where the woman really did not want to have the man, you know, trying to be hugging her and touching her and so on and so forth. And all she required from him is that he be discreet.
Right.
Right? You have daughters, be discreet. And so consequently, what you would see is, you know, accidents happen, and you would have some young lady down the road who has a child, and eventually the children would be playing together, and the wife would be also taken care of or sending clothes or something.
Mhm.
Now, if you're talking about an African context, that's the African context that that's in our ancestry,
Mhm.
right? Now, what Europeans came in and did is, and there's no discussion of whether it's right or wrong. I'm just saying this is the reality.
Mhm.
What Europeans came in and did, Europeans came in and said, "Oh, see that African thing? That's bad. Don't do that." But then they created another class of person called a bastard. So, in other words,
Right.
I have a wife, but I'm still going to have outside women, right? But the children that come from that relationship are bastards. In other words, they don't fit.
Right.
There's nowhere in the society in which they fit.
Right.
And so there's still some stigmas today in regards to that, right? Am I advocating that, the man go off and have another woman and so on? No, I don't.
No.
That's
Right.
not what I'm advocating. What I'm saying is that relationships change over time.
Mhm.
And as those relationships change over time, you really sometimes have to come back to basics and ask, is this man providing me with a home? Is he providing for my needs? Is he providing for my emotional needs?
Mhm.
Right? Is he being a father to my children? Is he somebody I can go to? And this is very similar to what, the clip that you had earlier,
Right.
what you were saying, right? Again, it's not to advocate any specific position, but it's basically to say, don't destroy your marriage or your relationship.
Mhm.
In other words, don't go on the breadline because the guy has another woman, right? Don't destroy the family because he has another woman. Now, argue if he have 5 or 6, you got a problem, and that's probably a problem that you had from previous relationships as well, or just knowing him previously that he was doing that, you got involved in it.
Mhm.
This is an uncommon subject. This is not a subject that we want to discuss. But a lot of the women who I imagine would be listening to us tonight have these issues. I don't understand, he got me and he wants somebody else and they're cheating and so on. And sometimes you cut relationships off
Mhm.
at the knees. Sometimes because you have not been treating the man in the
Mhm.
way the man needs to be treated, right?
Yeah.
And again, that's not something that women, particularly women of our century, particularly want to hear. But I
So
say this to women.
it's
Yeah,
very
I say this to women all the time. I say, listen, no woman can take your man unless you let him. That's just the nature of a man.
right. True.
No woman can take your man unless you let him. And then they ask me, well, what do you mean by that? I say, okay, if you do not cook for him, what does he do? He goes to Shafet, right? If you do not wash his clothes, what does he do? He goes to the laundromat, right? If you do not allow him to be intimate with you, what does he do? And it just so happens that whenever, and this, not every woman, I'm happy to say, but many women, whenever there is an emotional disconnect in the relationship,
Mhm.
women will cook, women will clean because they have to eat, right?
Right. Right. Right.
And they have to keep the washing machine on, right?
Right.
But they're not having any intimate relationship with the man.
Yeah. Cut off.
He gets cut off, right? Now you're working against your own interests. Because if you reject him
Mhm.
2, 3, 4 times, it just happens in the head of every man. You know something? Let me go and try and do something else. And of course, the weirdest thing I've ever had is a woman in a relationship with a man and tell me about toys. I'm like, what? Toys? Like,
That might be a whole segment by itself. Toys, huh?
But I'm just saying, because you're working against your best interests. What you're
Toys,
doing does not make sense.
toys are for children.
Toys are for children.
I said, not grown men. We don't play with toys. definitely not playing with toys. It's
I'm
funny
sure
though.
I'm sure you're gonna have a lot of comments.
Yeah, I know. I'm already seeing them here. I'm actually flagging a few of them. I don't even know how I'm gonna get all this in tonight, but I'm gonna try to make this happen. So we're definitely gonna do 2 parts of tonight for sure. But you kind of jumped to the bit right on cue though when you talked about polygamy
Mhm,
and man having the extended family. And
mhm,
what's interesting is that, like you said, it's uncomfortable in our society because we're
mhm,
not conditioned that way. Whereas if we were raised and taught that that was expected, then it would be a case where women are looking forward to being a part of a household and being that
mhm,
extended family. Well, like
mhm,
you said, in our society and colonialism wasn't built that way. It was done a particular way for a particular reason. And like
mhm,
you said, although they took you away from certain traditions, um, that tradition isn't about even having multiple wives. It's about the
mhm,
responsibility that comes with that as well. So it's not a road that not every man can travel either. You have to have
mhm,
the means, the emotions, and the
mhm,
discipline to be involved in that capacity. So, like you said, it wasn't about saying, "Okay, yeah, men should go and do that." 'Cause I saw
mhm,
somebody post and said, "Men going to cheat regardless of what," which I thought was interesting, but I don't agree with that. I
mhm,
don't actually agree with that, and even to the point where I can tell you, in my own personal relationship, relationships, I should say, I've watched them change and grow for different reasons at different points in times. And so for me, sometimes I sit back on my own, I just analyze it and question myself. Someone asked me
mhm,
recently what they said, if I'd ever quote unquote settle down with one woman. And I'm thinking, um, I like to think that life is full of surprises. You might
mhm,
meet an individual that has changed you in such a way, that captivate you in such a way that cause you to rethink everything you ever thought about. Or you may find that in different people combined. What do you mean by that, Emmanuel? Do I support polygamy? Well, yeah, and I don't hide that. But I don't
mhm,
think that's something that everyone can manage and deal with. So no, I don't say like, so I think there's some African country recently that said as a new rule that all men have to have a minimum of 4 wives because there's so many women right now and such a scarcity of men that I think the guy gonna look this up again because I know the person was telling me
Eritrea.
that
I
was
think
true.
it's Eritrea.
Eritrea, they said
I
it was
think.
there's so many women and it's like
Yeah.
this is ridiculous. They said that each man has to have 4 wives because
Mhm,
it's becoming to the point where men are becoming like scarce, which I think is crazy. But hey, different cultures do things perhaps that you said a bit differently. We here in the West and the Caribbean, especially Caribbean, the colonial or post-colonial or in between the colonial system, the mindset is how now most. I mean, I hear this a lot. Women, I ain't want the children. Me, I got one. I want another one, and this is the same language you're hearing over and over, and it's probably based on a previous or bad experience when it comes
mhm,
to relationships, especially when children are involved. Now, I mean, I myself have been placed in court for what they call
mhm,
maintenance, and
mhm,
at first it was like, wait, why would I, but the
mhm,
reality is, the society is structured in such a way. People say, well, you as a man, you as a father, you would do anything to make sure you provide for your children. Well, I agree
mhm,
that men should provide for their children. I totally agree with that. But
mhm,
it is not just a monetary thing. A father is there in many ways. And in some cases where I've heard men come to me and complain, yo, man, she ain't letting me see my children. I do this, I do that. I've heard voice notes of men saying, they gonna kill this woman. She taking my
mhm,
money and traveling. And I've heard all kind of stuff. I've even heard one recently about the lady who said the guy brought one McDonald snack for his child and neglected the other children, and and used to do it before, now he ain't doing it. I mean, we could go back and forth on this child thing. My thing is that when parents, there's an old African saying, when elephants fight, the grass suffers. When
That's correct.
parents become entangled in a tug of war for
Mhm,
this child, whether it's for monetary, emotional,
mhm,
want to see visits, the children are the ones who suffer the most. And although we don't want to have that conversation, yes, we know men did all kind of stuff. Yes, men in a good, men cheat. We hear all this men stuff. The reality is there is such a thing as a toxic mother. And that
mhm,
conversation, a lot of people don't want to open up that box because some
mhm,
mothers do more damage to their children, especially their girl children, by withholding the child from the father for whatever reason, whether it is I hate him now because he has another woman and he got another child and he, I done with he, so he move on, so I ain't want nothing to do with him. And then God forbid the child look like the father. It's like a reminder constantly.
Mm-hmm.
How do you advise couples or families who have this kind of issue where the child is in the middle and there's a monetary thing, almost like a ransom? You want to see a child, but you got to make sure you bring money, or you might be bringing money, you still can't see a child. How do you advise couples or fathers and mothers in this kind of scenario?
I have a colleague who did his master's, and his master's thesis resulted in the book.
Mm-hmm.
The book is called Fatherhood in the Neighborhood.
Fatherhood
in the neighborhood. In his research, what he did is he went around on the blogs and he was basically asking dads about their relationship with their girlfriends and their relationship with their children. And out of the research, what was very interesting is that the majority of men that he polled said that they love their children and they have nothing, that there's no issue with them and their children.
Right.
But every time I go and deal with she, man, stress, right? That she go to court and collect the money. Right? Now, if you listen to that,
wow,
that's crazy. But he's saying every time. No. But this makes perfect sense to me, see? Because then the child becomes the tool to hurt the dad. And it's effectively what's happening is that you're really hurting the child. And now that is another set of, there's so much science around that. So I don't see a lot. What I see a lot of? I see a lot of women, because I get referrals from agencies as well. I see a lot of women who have 3 children, 4 children, 2 for one guy, 2 for 2 different guys, 3 children and different fathers. And sometimes the guy that she's with is not the father of any of the 3. And so we cuss and we fuss about guys having other relationships. And again, not because I'm pushing that, but one of the things that we miss is that women are having these multiple children for these different men. And that creates persistent poverty. Because any single mother, whether she's university, whether she has a professional job, whether she works for whatever, it is stressful to raise a child on your own.
That's true.
Some women are fortunate enough to have mommy and daddy there still. And so the grandparents pretty much end up raising the children as you go out to work. But the role now has been reversed, because the role of the dad is to go out to work. The role of the mother is to nurture, right? But again, Western society or Caucasian brothers have changed all of that and has created these disconnects that really do not make sense and in fact cause dysfunction. So let's assume we had a woman on here tonight who is having this issue. Normally it's the man that I'm speaking to, right? Because of the one of my jobs in terms, or positions in terms of substance abuse. You want to make it right with the dad, right? You want to make it right with the dad. It's not that he doesn't want to help, or he may be unable to help for whatever reason. He may be incarcerated. He may have been incarcerated and has difficulty getting jobs. He may be addicted to something, right? And I'm not taking the man off the hook. because we have a lot of men that have suffered a tremendous amount of trauma. And the way that trauma manifests in a man is very, very different to how it manifests in a woman most of the time, right? So normally I'm speaking to men and I'm saying to them, particularly the ones who come into treatment at a facility where I work. As soon as they're sober up, they're coming and they're like, listen, I really want to, I want to have a relationship with my child. I have not been there. And I have to say to them all the time, forget the child. And they go like, I really don't understand. I says, you have to forget the child.
Wow.
Forget the child. But I have not been able to, I haven't seen my child for 2 years. I said, well, if you haven't seen your child for 2 years, you're in treatment. Forget the child. Deal with you. Right?
Yeah.
That's step one. But here's what step two is. Step two is you have to correct the imbalance between you and the child's mother. You have hurt her. You need to deal with that pain that she suffered because of you. And they usually don't get it until I say this. She's been telling your daughter or your son that your father, he was a jailbird, you're going to be a jailbird. He don't care about you. Look, you see, he got other children there, he taking care of them, he ain't taking care of you. And that has nothing to do with the child. It just has to do with the fact that you have hurt her, betrayed her, and she's upset and she's going to get back at you. And that's how she does it.
Yeah.
Now, some of them stay long enough to take my advice and start to correct the relationship with the woman. And often, Emmanuel, correcting our relationship is not that difficult. The woman just wants to feel respected.
True.
Right? So here we are. Again, we are trying to solve the wrong problem. The problem only becomes the children when the adults, again, the grass suffers when elephants fight, right?
That's right.
And the adults are not doing the things that they're supposed to do.
Communication again.
There you go.
Communication again. And communication appears to be indeed the main ingredient in resolving a lot of the unnecessary situations we find ourselves in as a people, as an individual in your daily life, as a matter of fact, in your work environment, school, just driving on the road, how you interact with strangers in the supermarket, communication. But in order to communicate effectively, one must know oneself, get it back to why things break down. It isn't, like you said, sometimes we look at the other person as if it's their fault. We got to stop to look at us. I think the sister said it earlier when she spoke about she had to look at her role in things to see if it went wrong. Yes, person might do stuff and it may not even be the toothpaste, but I have my own challenges. I have my own issues. And therefore, this is how I lash out. This is how I communicate or lack thereof. Although I think what I'm doing is effective and it's only coming from an emotional perspective and not an intelligent or balanced perspective. And that's when the danger comes in even more. Sister put a question here up. She said, I know a man bring a woman in his wife bed and she cannot do anything about it. Is that fair? Now, I'm going to tell you something, man. Like, that's a whole different conversation. That's Wednesday night's conversation. Like I said, this is a 2-part thing. I was told I have to do this for 2 parts, maybe even 3, which deals with abuse. We're going to touch on that on Wednesday. And I have a sister coming in who deals with this, especially on Wednesday. And we're looking to have a couple come in on Friday, if possible, then a married couple to tell us, some of their secrets. So we're definitely going to touch this part on Wednesday, Thelma. You can tune in for that. But the answer to that is plain and simple, no. But that is abuse also. As simple as it might sound, she can't do nothing. I mean, the mental aspect of that is abusive. So that's a whole different conversation. But the Trojan watching, These are the generation curses being passed down and spoken into the child's. This is true, Phil. This is a fact. It's a fact. And children, when you speak to the children and say these things, and you're right, brother. When they talk about, you're just like your father, this and that, and like you said, you got other children to take care of them, and he ain't doing nothing for you. And I know it may be said in a very malicious way, the damage that it does to the child. I mean, it's then that cycle continues. So breaking generational curses. This thing is deep. It may sound simple, but it's deep. And in order to move forward as a community, there's some basic things that we take for granted every day that we're going to have to face and deal with. And it boils down to knowing self and how we communicate with others. But in order to communicate effectively without using, and all young people nowadays is violent. Look, this weekend alone, I got about 4 videos showing me different women else play all over the crop over thing fighting. And, again, children watching. I don't know the situation as to why they felt they need to fight to that extreme. And it's supposed to be an event that they, celebrating or whatever. I'm not really sure what crop over is really all about, really. But I said it to say that the energy, that trauma that was there from before, and a trigger, just one thing to trigger it, something just to spark that fire, and then it's is everything up in flames. So there's some things we got to look at as a people. And I want to thank you definitely for coming in at the spirit of the moment and dropping your knowledge. Before you go, I want you to tell us if you had to again advise men and women, really, because we tend to, like you said, society caters one directional, and the men are usually labeled as this and that, turning forth. But the reality is, I told someone the other day that most men are raised in single parent homes by women. And unless a woman is aware of herself and knows her value and can teach that into her child, her sons and her daughters, then she's going to pass on the torch that was passed to her. And in most cases, if you like the same generational thing, it's passed on and passed on and passed on. And that's not to assign blame. It's to recognize that we got to stop passing this torch on, both men and women. And let's start finding ways to help each other heal. Yeah, men do things, women do things, but let's find a way to start heal. What sound advice towards healing for both men and women would you have to share with us?
I would start by demystifying this notion of relationships. And it really needs to be demystified. We have a work of art called the Bible, which is largely misunderstood, and it's in 2 portions. It's in the African. I don't know if people have really noticed this, but the Bible is divided into 2 portions. It's divided into the African portion and the European portion. One of them was written originally in Hebrew. The other one was written in Greek, right? And we've spent a lot of time studying the Greek portion and trying to make sense of it. And we've essentially not spent a lot of time reading the African portion. Now, here's the reason I'm saying this. First, in 1928, this notion of love became popularized in music and culture. Now, in the United States of America, and of course, once it happens in the United States, then it gets broadcast around the world as being, the gospel, the bread of life. Exactly, right? Now, prior to 1928, if you went home and said, I wanted to get married to this girl because I love her, they'd send you to the sanitarium to get your head checked. Right?
Oh, man.
So, what happened in 1928? But remember in 1930, right? They had a crash, Wall Street crash that abolished. Okay. So in other words, there is a cultural and social change that is beginning to occur in 1928. And the question was, how do we stimulate the economy? How do we get people to begin spending money? Right? So this notion of love became big. And of course, love meant dinner. It meant Valentine's, it meant cards, it meant wine and cheese and all of that.
Diamond and great diamond engagement rings.
Exactly. And it then found its way into popular culture, right? So let me just tell you a little bit about love. You have two hormones that are associated. There are more, but two specific ones are associated with this notion of love, right? One is called dopamine. You would not have sex unless your body produced dopamine. Dopamine is what makes you feel good. If you have a great meal and you go, that was fantastic, that's dopamine. Then there's another one called oxytocin. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone. That's the one that makes you feel connected. So, do the math, right? 1 + 1 equals that connection. All right? You have, I feel good about this connection. And the emotions then that are evoked from those two things occurring is what we call love, right?
Oh,
Which
what we
is
call it chemistry.
exactly. But which is why it doesn't last very long. You know,
It's
it doesn't
chemical
get
based.
precisely, right? Okay. So getting married because of that doesn't make sense. That's one. The second thing that we have to be aware of is there's an interesting comment in the Old Testament, right up in Genesis. It says, "And they shall become one flesh."
Mhm.
Right? You read that 100 times, and it's just, you know, it's just something linguistic.
Mhm.
But there's a process called microchimerism,
Mhm.
which is when a man has sex with a woman, his DNA becomes, it migrates to her brain. This is where it's been found. But this is DNA. This is the purest form of DNA.
Mhm.
And it begins to change the woman, and it changes her morphology. In other words, in about 5 or 10 years of having sex with this woman constantly, you begin to look like brother and sister.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Of course. Of
So
course.
people who are married, you've been married 5 years, but do you all look like brother and sister? Right?
That's
It's
that.
because the morphology begins to change.
Mhm.
She begins to look like him. Right? So if you are a woman and you are having all of these different relationships, sexual relationships, you are beginning to incorporate the DNA of a lot of different men. And this is the bummer, right? Sometimes you will have a man and he will make you pregnant and the child will look like Emmanuel.
Look at me, right? I get
Well,
the
like you,
blame.
right?
I probably
And
would
of
get
course,
anyhow.
it raises questions. So these are very, very important things, right? So if you're going to get into a relationship, what do you want to get into a relationship for?
Serious.
Well, the
Have a
first thing you want to do
clear definition.
if you want to get into a relationship and you want to get into a serious relationship, you know, once you pass 16 and 18 and 20, you know, you want to get into a serious relationship.
Mm.
You ask the question, why do you want to be in a relationship? I mean, this is for a woman. What's your purpose? Now, remember, dads used to ask that question, right?
Right.
Why are you here? What is your purpose?
Right.
Now, what women do, unfortunately, and I'll finish on this, what women unfortunately do
Mhm.
is men are in the relationship for sex. Women are in the relationship because they want somebody to care and protect and provide for them. That's fundamental, right? And what women do is women sell themselves short. Before the man gets to the point where he cares and wants to take care, you've given him what he wants. So he gets what he wants very, very early in the game before you get what you want.
Mhm.
But it is what you want that bonds the relationship. It is when he gets to the point where he can't do without you and he still wants sex. So in other words, chances are he hasn't had any sex and you can't keep the man from around the house. Right? It is when you have given him sex early in the game
Mm.
that he gets tired. Because I mean, you know, the first couple of times we have sex is absolutely fantastic. But you know, when we're doing it every day, it's just something that becomes a biological function. now you're in trouble because now he's looking for somebody else to get that buzz with,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So the key takeaway is for the women, it is take your time. Don't be rushing. And then secondly, make sure that the man that you're giving yourself to at least wants to take care of you.
Yes, indeed. Somebody here
Right?
making a funny comment. Isis, I heard that. You funny. I get it the blame for the baby. Oh man. Listen, Al, I want to thank you, man, for coming in for real, for real. If this was long overdue, though, we gonna build some more, man, for sure.
You're welcome. You're
But
very
I
welcome.
give thanks to you for coming in and dropping the knowledge, man. I really know that, folks. I mean, this so you're gonna have to go through the comments when you get a chance and even respond to some as well. When you get the time, man. But it's quite interesting how some people are looking at the whole situation, and it's good. The dialogue is good. The dialogue is good. It's healthy. But like I said, this is going to be 1, 2, 3 parts, man. So I look forward to hearing the sister on Wednesday with the other aspect of this thing, especially dealing with the abusive part, because that needs to definitely be discussed as well.
So
But
so let me just share something very, very quickly as I go.
go ahead.
Just because you're on to Emmanuel's show this evening, politically incorrect. All right. If you're having challenges in your relationship, I will give you, just because you're on the show, a
No, no.
10%.
Wow. I was going to tell you if you have a number that you could post, or you could drop it in the comments as well, how to reach you if the people are having their own little personal whatever, to hit you up for that little interaction, that counseling, and the quote unquote blood test. You funny. But no, seriously, yeah, put that information out there, and that would be greatly appreciated.
But even if it's just a chat, just to make sure that you keep your family together. I am seeing too many children, too many broken children. I see a lot of children. There are too many, and it's because of the parents. And a lot of the time, the relationships are not that bad. Relationships can be restored. It requires usually a little bit of tweaking, but there's a lot of hope for rebuilding.
Communication.
Yeah.
I definitely want to thank you, Al. Go ahead and
You're
put
very
your number in the chat. If you can't get a hold of the number, just shout me out, and I can definitely plug you in directly. That is not a problem. But definitely, again, my brother, thanks for coming through. And we're going to definitely chat some more for sure.
You're very welcome.
Shalom, brother.
Shalom, my brother.
Yeah, right. Without that, I mean, y'all heard it straight from the specialists. Me, I'm here taking notes. I'm here taking notes about encoding and decoding. I mean, his perspective is vast, and I can imagine someone who deals with this on a regular basis has a lot to share. I want y'all to send nothing but kinetic energy towards this brother. Send all the kinetic energy y'all possibly can towards his brother and his wife for 40 years. That's, like I said, that's the kind of milestone that we want to start hearing and seeing again. Restoring the family order, restoring the family. And it's in so doing that we can build and move forward. And I like the fact that the brother wasn't biased in one way or another, but balanced. So yeah, give thanks again for Brother Lane for coming through and dropping that wisdom for sure. Give thanks from Politically Incorrect. All right. There's Isis, you want Al back for sure. He coming through again. We got Wednesday. We're gonna deal with his sister and a friend of mine, personal friend of mine. I can't wait she come on this year. There's a few comments I was trying to star and click on the side when they were coming up, and wanting to touch on them in a way. But there was a lot of good stuff folks were sharing in between. A lot of stuff. I want to thank y'all for the support as well. Understand the focus. You see, this is the key. Communication is indeed important. I mean, we can't even get away from it. Building trust as well. Trust isn't something you get from the door. You build that over time. And I think that people miss that. You don't get trust, you earn it. And you earn it by being consistent. And it's okay to fumble in between, but at least be consistent in your effort to recover. So one can see that you're making effort. Jackie, I love the fact, honesty is the bottom line. Just be upfront, communicate and be upfront. That, you can never go wrong with that. You can never, ever, ever go wrong with that. Respect again. I think the sister said it best. You said, I heard someone say that here looking for love when we should be looking for respect. Taking responsibility as adults is also important. I mean, when it comes to children, I mean, what more can we say? When two elephants fight, only the grass suffers. And as men, I think that the brother said it again, reconciling damages. Because sometimes we hurt people and not realize we do so, And it may not be something that was intentional, but sometimes I think that sometimes people get in relationships with a hidden agenda. Not saying that all women do this or all men do this, but sometimes I feel there's an agenda. And when that agenda doesn't work out that way, then what happens is that it turns to bitterness and resentment and different things, having expectations of someone. And then, yes, so we can indirectly hurt people, not recognizing our actions as sincere as they might seem or benevolent as they might appear, may actually be causing damage. And I think the brother hit that on the head in terms of, you need to put everything on pause. Go back and fix that, man. Go fix that. Just fix that however you can. Fix it. Make amends. And that's one of the other ways that we can definitely start to heal as well. The sister talked about not every man can handle this. I like that when it talks about having multiple relationships or simultaneous relationships at the same time. That's kind of a term that they would say and express that what they call polygamy, but it's really simultaneous relationships. And it's not relationships that's had separate and behind people's back where people don't know, but where it's upfront, where there's dialogue and interaction. And it can be one of the most joyful experiences you can ever have. The dialogue is the key. The communication is the key. I mean, it puts you on a whole different platform, totally. Like the brother said earlier, control versus rule. Well, if people have selected you to rule, then you have a responsibility to rule and govern in a respectable manner. And that's just the reality, So, yeah, though, I mean, we had a lot that was said. Gemma said, yeah, we need Al back. You wanted to share a point, Gemma, when it comes to relationships and children. And that would be a good time to jump in if you want to and share that. We would love to hear what you had to say regarding that point on the children. So feel free to jump in now if you can still. The link is somewhere there in the chat. But I would definitely love to hear them views as well. Yeah, thanks again. Aaron, I see you. He said, love is truly controversial. This subject, love. Aaron, you funny, man. This subject, love. As a man that's been incarcerated, I could tell you firsthand, right? When I first came home and got involved with a woman that I had known before, I got involved with her, and I wasn't really trying to push the physical aspect of things because prison is a funny thing because I found that I wasn't ready for relationship. I kind of felt I was exchanging one prison for another. I had to take a little time to get to know myself, get to understand myself, and really, feel out this thing called, like Aaron said, love, because being away from a woman for so long, from that feminine connection, the brother talked with connection, and it wasn't there, man. It wasn't there. Yeah, you want that, but a relationship where you got to be answering, you got to be sharing and doing certain things, I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready for that at all. And then a child came into the picture. I was nowhere near ready. And I'm sure I dropped that ball countless times. I just give thanks. They have people who have been understanding and patient with my bullshit, to say the least. And like the brother said, it's about going back and making right wrong. So men, we do have to look at ourselves, and women too, but we won't get into that. Women, I think for the most part, have gone through so much that healing again, focusing on healing oneself and then extending that, it's how we move forward. Yes, and bring the sister right back up with us. Good night, Gemma. How are you doing again?
I'm well. Good night, everyone. What I would like to say in terms of mothers withholding their children from the fathers, they're actually doing sometimes irreparable damage to those children.
Wow.
Especially a girl. Well, I guess for a male child as well. But for a girl child, not having the father in her life is extremely traumatic. And like I said, in my case, not having had a father in my life, now it's I don't trust men. It's as simple as that. I don't trust men, and it's not necessarily because they're unfaithful. It's my way of protecting my heart, for fear of abandonment, uh, and rejection, because that's what I would have seen, not having a father in my life. So to withhold the father from the children is just really not the right thing to do, because the child is the one who ends up suffering, and the mother suffers as well. And then it's compounded for the child, because the child sees the mother suffering because the father is not there, and the child suffers because the father is not there. And as a result, you don't know how to interact with a male figure, whether or not the mother has a boyfriend, or remarries, or whatever the situation might be. It is not the same thing. It is not the same thing as having your own father, being able to say daddy, and being able to feel comforted, to feel secure in whatever situation you might find yourself in, knowing that you can go home, you can talk to your father about the situation, knowing that if you scrape your knees, your father is going to be there, just to add support. And when you don't have that as a girl, you then don't allow men to do that for you, because you then have to uh, take on that role, really, of being strong, offering your own security, knowing that there's no one there to stand up for you, so you stand up for yourself. In my case, fortunately, I've not been boisterous and rambunctious and so on, but quietly strong. And that inner strength um, was also a force that pushed men away.
Wow, they saw you as this. So wait, you mean, so what you're saying? They saw you as being a dominant or an aggressive female?
Oh no,
Or,
not aggressive. I've never really been aggressive unless I need to be. When I need to be, I will.
but that
Um,
strength, that firmness, I suppose you would have,
yes, I was always
and
very firm, and
that dependent on self and not
yes,
nobody else.
yes, exactly, exactly. So
Wow.
I've always been very firm, knowing what I want, and being very intolerant of men who are not sure of themselves, very intolerant of men who would not take on the responsibility of being a man.
Wow. Wow. That someone said their heart goes out to you for not having a relationship with your father. I mean, affecting relationship with men. I could see how that can translate in that capacity. I mean, we can all see that. What if you had to share advice? I mean, I don't know why this happens, but if you had to say something in a nutshell to, whether fathers or mothers in this situation, what would that be? What would that be?
Mom, your issue is with the man. It's the child is not the issue. Allow the child to have that relationship with the father, and allow them to navigate that. If you need to get assistance with counseling and so on, do so, but don't withhold the child from from the parent, from the father. It has it has significant negative effects on that child.
Wow. Wow. Can that even affect the child in school? Let's say a child who's attended school, in class
Oh
and stuff.
yeah, oh yes, oh yes. I mean, I've been told by professionals that I am the exception, because I would have used my situation in a positive way. I used my situation to become a high achiever. Um, And that too in itself can have some negative impact as well. But I was never, as I said before, never aggressive, never I was never one to cause any issues, and I never want to have the spotlight on myself. I have always been the type of person who would quietly go about what I have to do, but very focused on what I need to do, very focused on what I want in life, and never allowing others to get in the way to my me achieving that.
Well, I definitely want to thank you. I mean, I look, you might have to come on Wednesday as well with the other
No.
sister because I mean, Gemma, I mean, this is personal for me, and you know why I'm saying that.
Hmm.
You know, I've life, huh? Life.
Yeah, life.
Your honesty and your strength, though. I mean, as a man, that simple quality, that strength and that honesty is like the basic ingredients a man will look for in a woman. That because it translates as strength. You see, so I'm hearing you. I can hear why you would have those challenges or why you used to have those challenges. Because for me, what I'm hearing now is a woman who is strong and perhaps is looking for a strong man to understand that she needs time to grow in love, grow in
Hmm.
trust, and
Yep.
grow in that respect, So, like, I give thanks for you sharing, really give thanks. And I'm sure that others have appreciated what you've done just by virtue of you sharing. So, I want to thank you for sure. This, again, kinetic energy, all in your direction, man. And more strength to you. And I look forward to hearing you. Perhaps on Wednesday we could dialogue some more about the same conversation. But thanks for sharing your worth with us tonight on Politically Incorrect.
Thank you. Good night.
I and I mean this could go on. I mean that man, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's all I can say is that's crazy. Because to open that is just to go elsewhere. How about having a father in the home, but he was never a participant? I mean, that might be even worse. That might even be worse. Just as a figurehead, it's like the Queen in Barbados. They're there, but they mean nothing. I mean, family. That's what I'm saying. As a people, there's so many little things we need to work on and work through that is important to building community and moving forward. The reason why things are the way they are because the family have been broken. That's the only reason because the family is strong, the village is strong, the community is strong. So the enemy can't come from outside and infiltrate because it's strong. But when you break it down and separate it, divide them, then it's easy to rule them. Can't go wrong. Divide and rule. That's been the only plan. An abusive father is also horrid. Yo, Wednesday, Sonny. Sonny, Wednesday, man. Wednesday, we got to go on this road. I mean, a lot of women healing while having to raise children full time is not going to be a pretty process. Both are going to feel neglected at different times. Wow. When fathers abandon, it hits differently. Family, I want to thank you all for sharing, really. I mean, yeah, the trauma, the trauma, the trauma, the trauma. That one word, family, trauma. I think that says it all, man. I mean, oh man. Combine and love. Divide and rule, combine and love. I like it. Family, look, it's important, right, that we realize where we are as individuals and focus more on the healing part rather than trying to calculate who hurt who more. Men as a responsibility, yes, we gotta go back and mend some of them broken wounds, man. And you may not be able to change the past, but you can make the future a better one. You know, so I encourage all to do so. And mothers, wives, relationships, same thing. Let's stop keeping tally and let's start to build. Let's start to build. Jackie said it earlier, honesty, just to be open and share. And have that come, and the brother said it, communication. You find that the lack of communication. And the truth is, communication not one of the things we are taught either. And most of us pick it up, like the brother said, from television, from the environment you raised in, the way your dad spoke to your mother, or vice versa. And there was even a dad, maybe the boyfriend beating the hell out of the mother, or the mother beating the hell out of the boyfriend, and this back and forth. And it's all a blended cocktail, a recipe for a disaster to keep us just where we are. But let us start to use our spiritual needle and thread, and let us mend these wounds that we have, and in order to keep ourselves whole, so that we can approach the table as a whole being instead of two halves, you know, or broken pieces. You know what I mean? So yeah. Maria, you're the great one, man. You know, really, I give thanks for you sharing as well. You say you're too honest. Well, we're going to give thanks to you too, Maria, for real life situations. You're not too honest. You are who you are. And if they can't handle that, then leave your one self out of the equation. You know what I mean? And that's all good. But thanks, family, for real. I give thanks. Everybody's sharing. And Darken, I see you. Darken, I see you. The light will always come out the dark, man. Manifest your truth, yeah? Give thanks for sharing too, sis. But, oh, man. This, like I said, I didn't want to go a certain direction, so I didn't put the emphasis on that direction. It kind of, Spirit said it shifted at the last minute, and it was indeed worth it, man. Oh, man. But like I said, go watch the rest of that sister video. I had posted the link earlier, and you can go check her out. There's a few things that she had to say. And there's actually a second video. I'll probably save that for Wednesday. But go give that sister a listening ear. And just for the sake of having a different perspective for a change. Different perspective for a change. I'll go ahead and post that comment down. The link to the video again, I'll go ahead and post that down below. Go check it out. And yeah, there you go. And give me your thoughts on that. So, wow. How do you wow. It said charity begins at home. I plan to work on that. You know, let it start at home. Coded messages, man. It's all good. But thank you again, family, for tuning in on Facebook, Politically Incorrect, my page, and YouTube. Give thanks. And Wednesday, we're going to extend this. We're going to touch on it some more. And the reason, like I said, is we could focus on all the COVID, the vaccines, and the micro nano chips and all this other stuff. Yeah, but these are all symptoms of a problem we've allowed to escape because we have been missing the fundamental foundation. We can't build our house on sand. Well, we could build our house on sand. It's not wise to build your house on sand. You build your house on solid rock. Let us focus on that solid rock and the house we're building to stand for time and time memorial. So having said that, let me just drop a little song real quick. It's like, how do you which song you could possibly play to what can you possibly play? Like, what can I possibly play? You can't. Oh man, I had another tune.
This is your singer Taurus Riley talking to you from Jamaica.
I gonna play this tune. I can play this tune.
No MSG, no preservative, no additives, no nothing.
No
just
nothing.
the way we are. Check it out. Oh gosh.
Taurus Riley, just the way you are.
Love you, man.
Have your own style. I got to love you. And know me love you. Hey. She wants to be like the people on TV.
Love you just the way you are, sis. Love you just the way you are, man.
Big screen. She asks, do you love me? I say you're just right. Absolutely, I love you.
Just the way you are.
You don't have to change, you don't have to do a thing, no, just the way you are, girl. If you put on a powder, if you take off a powder,
Self-love, family. Self-love, family.
with no makeup in our brain.
Healing time, healing time.
Girl, in my eyes you're a star, girl. Hey, she fit me, and she give me love plenty.
Plenty.
She authentic. This are the real thing, this are the plastic. See, I got big plans. I used to be my wife, I'm now your husband. She said, what is it you like about me? Mr. Woman, you're not fit, change nothing, I love you.
Just the way you are.
You don't have to change.
Self-love, family. Time to heal yourself,
The way
man.
you are.
Time to heal yourself, family.
Turn up on her if you take.
Build a nation, family.
Just the way you are.
Building a nation, family.
Make up with no makeup, with no break.
Love yourself, family.
You are.
Love yourself just as you are, family.
You're a star, girl. Yeah. Oh.
No money TV and the ads,
Star
all
girl.
the commercials.
Shadow.
Nicki Minaj does not look like that.
Friend so classy, with the brains and the body of a champion. She a my Miss World, me a the Mr. Man, and she broader than a Kardashian.
Yeah.
Me even watch TV. In a me heart, me have a beauty queen. No man no lucky like me. I'm blessed to have you, my baby. I love you.
Just the way you are.
You don't have to change. You don't have
Love and light, family.
to just the way you are.
Love and light, family.
If you put on a powder, if you take off a powder, just the way you are.
Balance, balance.
Wake up with no makeup, we not break up. Just the way you are.
That's right. Raise the youths. Yes.
Na, na, na.
Love it, the youths, man.
And she's my star girl, first lady, top actress, made for me.
Yes.
Star girl, boy.
We love you just the way you are. Yes, family. Don't let it trick you, man, or rearrange you, man. Just be in love with you, man. Be in love with you, man. It's time to heal and love self and give power and glory to the Most High, because without the Most High, we can never be true to self. You see, get in tune with your divine self and manifest it in the world, family. And that's how we're moving forward as a people. We rebuilding. You see, we ain't building our house on sand, but on a solid foundation, on that rock. And that rock, according to the gospel aspect, is the rock, the foundation of Christ consciousness. You see, the mind, time to renew our minds, family, building on rock. But we starting the building process in the mind, family. Don't start the building around you, because as an architect, it is a design in the mind, a thought that puts on paper that builds in the reality. So before we could build a house in reality, got to start from right here. We're going to build it in the solid mind. We're going to build it on the temples, in the temples that wasn't built by hands, family. I give thanks for those who paying attention and can read between the lines. That's what's up. But yeah, though, Wednesday night, give thanks again to the brother Al. Remember, he's supposed to post his number in the comments. I'm not sure if he did it yet. If not, hopefully he does that. If not, you can always hit us up on Politically Incorrect, and we'll get you in touch with the family should you need to connect. The number is 246-838-8253. Yeah, we give thanks. I got to change that digital number soon, though, for some reason. I ain't know yet. I'm paying attention to what they're doing, but we'll see. We'll see. But either way, we ready for whatever. Don't matter. Folks know how to reach us, man. But yeah, give us a call, family, and link us. So y'all have a blessed night. Woman, know thyself. I love it, Jacqueline. It's a fact. It's hard for most people to say I love you and truly mean it from their heart. You know what? Love y'all, family. Really, this is how we gonna make this thing happen. It's pure energy, and we connecting right through. Keep safe, crew. I like that, Maria. So y'all have a blessed night as well. Haile Selassie first, Empress Wazira Menin. Y'all already know it's one perfect balance. One perfect balance. Y'all already know. But Phil, give thanks for the link. And yeah, Brother Al again, give thanks for coming forward, man. For sure, for sure. But wow, man. Rendell, I see you. Blessed night to you too, Candy. Embrace who you are. Be unique. Be uniquely you. Love it. Love it. Love it. All the way from up and abroad. Up and abroad. Give thanks, family. Guidance Citation to you too, family. Real thing. We're gonna link up on Wednesday, family. For sure, for sure, for sure. But that one there, yeah, tonight was wow. Serious. But go check that sister out. Vibrations, her interview. Go check it out. Go check it out. Go check it out. It's worth it. Matter of fact, I'm gonna put the other. I'm gonna leave the other video for Wednesday night. I gonna leave this for Wednesday night. Okay, y'all too much of all night. You gotta chew it. The best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. Too much make you choke. So Wednesday night, family, we gonna connect. Y'all be good, be safe, be wise in between there, and keep shining, man. Love and light always, always, always. Remember that. Some of the strangest thing happened tonight, but be thankful for it. See y'all then, huh?